course.
1 second. Do 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 do.
There we go. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. We're not doing a Blog Talk Radio stream today because of the fact that I'm just doing an impromptu stream, so it is what it is. And unfortunately, it looks like my son knocked out the cord to my microphone, which is why you could not hear me. But now we can hear me. We fixed the technical difficulties, and we are back live on the stream. Or maybe Donald Trump came and did it because he was afraid of what I might say. Yes, this is a historic day indeed. This will be a day that will be long remembered. The first time a former president has been found guilty, not just guilty of a crime, but guilty of a felony. Donald Trump is now officially a convicted felon. And with all that comes with, of course, I used to believe way back in the day, for some reason, I thought I'd learned in high school or before that if you were a convicted felon that you could not be president. But that was wrong. Or either that or I came over from Earth 2 or something. Or I switched dimensions of some sort. And turns out that you can, in fact, run for president as a felon. You could run for president from prison. Someone actually has done that in the past. They didn't win, clearly, but we do now have somebody who could very well be sentenced to prison time 3 days before the Republican National Convention, July 11th. So, unfortunately, I will not be around. I will not be in the country on July 11th. Because I'll be on a cruise, so I won't be able to. More than likely won't be able to do a live reaction to this. Michael Irish in the YouTube chat says he can pardon himself if he's elected. I don't believe so. There's legal opinions as to whether or not Donald Trump could pardon himself from a federal crime. Some people say yes, some people say no. I say regardless of what the current feeling is, I think this activist conservative Supreme Court would absolutely say that a president could pardon himself of crimes that he committed. But this is a state charge. This is not a federal felony. This is a state felony. So technically he should have no ability to pardon himself, which if he gets elected and if he's put in prison, it creates the possibility of a constitutional crisis. Because what do? We've never been in a situation before where you have somebody who could be on election day, not just on election day, on inauguration day, be sitting in a prison cell. Does the Supreme Court, does Chief Justice Roberts have to come into his prison cell and give him the oath of office? Do you move the Resolute desk from the Oval Office to Rikers Island? How does that work? Nobody knows, because we are now in uncharted territories. This is uncharted waters, and we're going to be finding all this stuff out as we go. Of course, Donald Trump, as any convicted felon does, has the ability and the right to file an appeal, and of course, I'm sure he will. He'll file an appeal, and I'm sure the appeal will be handled however it gets handled. He's going to appeal the verdict. He's going to and of course, he's not just going to appeal the verdict in the courts, he's going to appeal to the masses, as he's already done, as he's been doing, trying to say how this is a corrupt jury, corrupt people, corrupt judge, Biden's against me, this is lawfare, whatever. So Donald Trump is going to continue on his same old whining. Now, Michael Irish says Supreme Court's going to say he's absolutely immune. Is he? That's whether or not the Supreme Court says he has presidential immunity or full immunity for things done as president. That's the thing with this case. This case has nothing to do with him when he was president. This case, the crimes committed here took place before he was president. So even if he, as president, would have full presidential immunity for actions taken while president, which he shouldn't be found to have full immunity, but you never know with this activist conservative Supreme Court. What we do know is that these charges took place from before. So it would take an extreme amount of judicial activism for them to say that he was immune for items that he did beforehand, or that simply the act. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to say, because I became president, I am now immune. I am now automatically cleared of all crimes that I've did previous to me being president. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to make that legal theory pop into the air, have his legal team pop that legal theory into the air. So you never know. Michael Irish, MAGA already claiming victory because they said it would be unanimous because all Democratic city. I was really wanting one of the charges to be found not guilty. Not because I thought he wasn't guilty, but I was waiting for like one of the charges for them to say not guilty, simply because of the fact I wanted to see how many Republican pundits, how many MAGA extremists were going to say, see, they found Donald Trump not guilty on one count, and then ignore the other 34 or 33, I should say. But clearly they didn't do that. They found him guilty on all 34 counts, and as I said, guilty on 34 counts. One count, two counts, Go the way I'm not going to do it all the way up to 34, but I'm wondering, can the MAGA supporters who are still going to vote for him even count the 34 at this point? Maybe they need to learn. Maybe they're going to learn. If Biden was to blame, he'd be in a jail cell, wouldn't he? Well, I mean, president, according to Donald Trump's legal theory that has been posited before the Supreme Court, Biden could do anything he wants, and as long as he's not impeached and convicted on the articles of impeachment by the Senate, he could get away with anything he wanted to do. So if Biden wanted to use his office of the presidency, use the office of the presidency to go after political rivals and do the lawfare, as they're claiming, if that's what Biden wanted to do, then according to Donald Trump's own legal theory, Joe Biden has full immunity for doing that. So it's hypocritical for them to criticize Joe Biden on any claims of him using his office as lawfare, because he has immunity, according to Trump's legal team, according to the Donald Trump legal theory of presidential immunity. So, yeah, see how it's done, Merrick Garland. Yeah, exactly. Tim Farrell, I'm waiting for the lock him up. If people are not going to Biden rallies and shouting lock him up, I mean, that would just be a missed opportunity, right? And a guy, what a brave jury, prosecutors and judge, and Michael made my day a great day for America. And in some ways it is a great day for America, simply because of the fact that justice was done. We are able to get a felon convicted of felonious charges against him because of his felonious actions, because he wanted to manipulate the system to make sure that he didn't have that information out there to harm him, to harm the election process, and in doing so, lying about his business activities. And that's the thing. That's the core of the trial. That people are going to say, oh, it's a hush money. They've been still saying it's a hush money trial. You shouldn't go to prison for paying a porn star or whatever. That's not what the case was about. The case was about him covering up activities by lying on business records to manipulate the results of an election. And the manipulating the results of the election is what brought the misdemeanors up to a felony. My only concern with this whole thing, and I've said this a couple times, I didn't want to jinx it, but I have said it a couple times, that I was concerned that they might say, well, this is a federal crime, and how can you convict people on state crimes with state crimes and elevate it to a federal crime, or update it to a felony based off of a federal election, not a state election. But I mean, I guess technically it is a state-run election because the state, you are electing the electors. So I guess technically that could be the way around it. And yeah, Tim Farrell said exactly, a jury he helped pick and could not corrupt. So yes, he absolutely, and they can't complain about the jury because the one person I think that they complained about was somebody who was not placed on the jury. There was no objection to anybody who was currently sitting on that jury who was not currently. Everybody who on that jury that reached the verdict, there was no objection by the Trump team for their inclusion on the trial. So you can't complain about the jury because you didn't fight to get those people off the jury. So Michael Irish, the sad thing is his cult would have embraced his porn star fling because it makes him manly. They sexualize him anyways, a buff astronaut or cowboy in NFT form. Well, yeah. They love the fact that he, they're probably jealous of the fact that he hooked up with the porn star, even though the same type of incel type folks would view and degrade the porn star as somebody who is not worthy of their time because of, quote, being run through, as we've seen during my my videos where I unravel toxic masculinity and how people have issues with women who have multiple sex partners. So let's see. Boo. Oh, it looks like Hal is going live, and Hal has gone live. So it was bound to happen, but like Midas was online. I think Stephanie Miller's going online. Everybody's going to be going online. So it would be silly of me to not go online at this point. Anybody can load this video later and watch it later if they want to. So, hey Jolie, what's going on? Good to see you. Thank you for coming in to this impromptu show. I was first. I was first, but I was kind of trying to work it out with Andrea just to kind of see what's going on, and just to kind of see what I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to go up against Hal or whatever. But again, I'm making this show now, and for the people who want to watch the show later, hopefully it's not going to be too long. It might not be too long. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see if we get other people in the chat start discussing things. But people can always watch the video later. I included this video in my case against Donald Trump because literally this was a case against Donald Trump, and now he's a convicted felon. So this just adds to the case against Donald Trump. You don't want to vote for Donald Trump because by doing so, you'll be electing a convicted felon into the Oval Office. So, yes, I get trophies. Thank you, Michael. Let's see. The Muppet Channel, White House live cam where the oldest troll gatherer is going nuts. If he personally deems them a threat to America, yep. Let's see. The thought was no party would be so desperate as to nominate a convicted felon. He should be taken into Penguins. He should have been taken into custody immediately. Well, that's the thing. I don't know if taking him into custody immediately would have been the correct thing to do, simply because of the fact that, would anybody else in this situation, and any other person convicted on these charges, would they have been taken into custody right here now, or would they have been taken into custody at sentencing? That's my point that I would raise. I would say, look, if anybody else in this situation being found guilty of these charges, which are misdemeanors upgraded to felonies because of the other extenuating circumstances, if they would have been taken into custody immediately, then he should have been taken into custody immediately. However, if nobody else would have been taken into custody immediately, despite the fact that Donald Trump is a vile, horrible person and we don't like him, the judge needs to do the right thing and dot every I, not just dot every I and cross every T, but the judge also needs to make sure that everything that is done can't be overturned by an appeals court, and it has to have no appearance of impropriety for reasonable people. Now, the unreasonable people, the MAGA supporters who are going to always say that this is a witch hunt, fake news, whatever, blah blah blah, they're always going to say that it was flawed, there was impropriety from the start to finish, so that's irrelevant. But reasonable people should be able to look at it and say, okay, this judge is going above and not even going above and beyond. This judge is doing exactly what he would do for anybody else in this particular situation, and as such, that's a good thing. So I'm not going to begrudge the judge for not remanding him into custody as long as everybody else in the same situation would have not been remanded into custody. Even, I mean, I don't think that he's necessarily a flight risk. If someone were to say that he was a flight risk, then maybe. But there's discussions that this might not even warrant prison time. It may. I mean, 34 felonies is a lot of felonies to not have a little bit of prison. But I don't even know if Donald Trump could last a week in prison. What's the over-under on how many days, weeks, months, etc., that Donald Trump would be able to last in prison? So Jeff Curry, ABC better wrap up coverage before Jeopardy comes on, or I may start a riot. Don't say that. Now we need to oust Cannon from the documents case. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that she's was able to get both the initial hearing and the trial. Like, there's 3 possible judges. The odds of you getting both, I think, was simple math, 1 out of 9. 1 out of 9 chance that you would get her twice, and you got her twice. So Donald Trump is, in the documents case, is lucky AF. But in this case, he is guilty AF. To be fair, I predicted De Niro plays Cohen in the movie. That would be great. That would be absolutely great. I mean, I could see him doing the part very well. Not just because of the fact that he's a good actor, but because I could see him specifically doing Michael Cohen very well. And I think it would just piss people off, the MAGA folks off even more. New York, we love it. Is he a flight risk now, says Jeff? I don't think so. I think if he was a flight risk, he would have already done flu. I mean, I think he knew that he was going to be found guilty because because he knows he's guilty, but he's never going to admit that he knows he's guilty. Otherwise, he would have just pled guilty. But he knows that he knew that he was going to be found guilty, and I think he believes that he could use this to his political advantage. And if he flees the country now, he obviously can't use it to his political advantage to win. There will always be people who are going to vote for him. If he fled the country right now, if he went and went to some country without extradition, and he was like, and he tried to run a political campaign from wherever, New Zealand, or I think New Zealand doesn't have extradition. I don't know. That might have changed since the last time I was told that New Zealand didn't have extradition. But there's still going to be people who are going to vote for him even if he was out of the country. So, but how many more votes does this lose him? There was some polling data of registered voters saying that if he's found guilty, that like 16% are more likely to vote for him and 15% are less likely to vote for him. But registered voters doesn't necessarily mean likely voters. And so we're going to see now that Nikki Haley has endorsed a convicted felon. Let's see if she does a mea culpa about face. Probably not, because she's a hypocrite, just like the rest of the elected and formerly elected Republican politicians who are still backing Trump are. So, Steve, Dan's on the phone and Hal on the laptop. Well, there you go. Dual streaming. I support that choice. Double dipping. Leanna Guy, haven't they already taken Trump's passport away? Do you need a passport to jump on a private jet, though? Did they take Trump's passport? Trump's passport in 2022 was taken after the Mar-a-Lago search. So it was returned. It was seized in the Mar-a-Lago search, but it was returned to him back in 2022. Can Donald Trump travel abroad? That might. No, that's just a bunch of stuff talking about his own travel restrictions and not him. When I told you they were going to jail him or eliminate him, I mean, just because he's found guilty, it doesn't mean he's going to prison. I don't know how you have 34 felony counts and don't send somebody to prison, at least for a little bit. But, you were right in that they were going to, that they would convict him. But of course, they could convict him and send him to prison, and then he could still win because people might still hold beliefs that he would somehow still be better than Joe Biden. There are people out there who are flat out saying that they're still not going to vote for Joe Biden because of how Joe Biden's handling the Middle East issues, etc. Or Jeff, I specifically used the term abroad. I was waiting for you to say something, so thank you for maintaining my faith in your dirty mind. I mean, I say we are still going to vote for him. Of course you are, because you see this as a fraud, as a sham, as a political witch hunt, and that it's not really. But don't you think it's interesting though that if Donald Trump is claiming, because I don't know if you caught me saying this earlier, so I want to repeat this again just to get your take on it, since I know we do have a conservative in the chat who is wanting to vote for Donald Trump. If under the Donald Trump legal theory that a president is immune and should be able to do anything that they want to do while in office, isn't it hypocritical for Donald Trump to then criticize Joe Biden for using his office to go after his political rivals? I'm not saying that's what Biden's doing, but that's what y'all are saying Biden's doing. But if Biden has the right to do so simply because he's president, then why are you criticizing him for it? I mean, that's what Trump believes, that anybody as president should be able to be immune and be able to do whatever it is that they want to do as long as they're not convicted of articles of impeachment by the Senate. They would have to be impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate in order for any action taken by a president to be seen as unlawful and able to be considered a crime. So, what's the problem, MAGA folks? If Joe Biden is doing what you're claiming he's doing, I don't believe he is, but if he's doing what you're claiming he's doing, and if he's using his office to go after political rivals like you're claiming he's doing, well, isn't that allowed? Isn't that kosher? Isn't that the rules that y'all set up? Y'all are saying that these are the rules, so why shouldn't he play by them? Leanna, I would love for Trump to get caught trying to... And that's the other thing as to why, personally, wouldn't want to necessarily see him be locked up right now. Although I would love to see the attempt to lock him up. But one of the reasons why I don't want to see him be sent into prison or remanded into custody until sentencing is because I want to be able to see how absolutely unhinged he gets after this. He's got to be. I mean, to be honest, his rant that he gave immediately after the verdict was read, when he came out of the courtroom and he spoke to the press, was actually not as unhinged as I expected it to be. So I'm waiting for either the unhinged Truth Social rant and or the rally rants that he's going to be just completely flipping out about now. So dang, near 80 years it took for him to be held accountable for something that's a pretty good run, pretty much. So it explains why he was not replaced despite Biden poor polling, because they knew they had this in their back pocket. I mean, again, polling can change, as we've discussed at the beginning of yesterday's show. Polling can change. Polling can change given new information. And you may believe that this is fraudulent. You may believe that this is not something that is a legitimate conviction. But these are a jury of his, quote, peers, people who lived in New York. Again, this is probably the most important thing. The Donald Trump legal team did not object to any of those people who sat on that jury. None of those people on that jury were objected to by the Trump legal team. So there was no complaints before the trial. Of course, they're going to complain now. But Jeff Curry, I can't wait to hear what 6B has to say. She's going to be like, I will cuckold everybody in the name of Donald Trump now. See, I was voting for Biden before the verdict and still am. Same here. It's a district that he got 4% of the vote. Okay, so I mean, it still doesn't matter. They did not object to anybody on that jury. If I was on a jury, I think I would be able to be on a jury, and they might not want me on it because I'm Liberal Dan from Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central here on YouTube, and also on twitch.tv/Liberal Dan Radio. Support the show, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch. If you have Amazon.com, do your free subscription over on Twitch. There's the pinned. I don't even think I pinned the link yet. There it goes. Let me pin the link now that it moved up. There's the free game that you can play to help support the show. That's the Nerdy Dan stream. I'm on nerdydan.com on Tuesdays as well. But anyway, point of the matter is that I would like to think that if I was sitting on that jury, that I would be able to sit there and say, you know what, regardless of my personal beliefs about who Donald Trump is as a person, I would want the case to be determined on the merits and not because of my personal feelings, simply because of the fact that I wouldn't want the conviction, if a conviction was reached, to be seen as anything but legitimate. So I've argued, again, last night we're arguing about Scott Peterson and whether or not Scott Peterson should have his DNA evidence. It doesn't matter if I think that he did it. I do think that he did it. Doesn't matter if I think that he did it, though, because if I think that he did it, he should still get the ability to have his DNA retested. If there's plenty of other times where there was one time where I was sitting, I was living in the city of Kenner, which is on the outskirts of New Orleans. I was sitting there and we were in the middle of having a charter committee because I had brought up to the city council back then that they had screwed up because they passed an ordinance that would have that basically made it vague as to who became the council vice president because they reworded something else about who becomes council president. So it's like, we need to have a charter committee to discuss this and other issues with the charter. And so I was named to the charter committee because, I fought for it. I was like, I'm calling for this. I think this should be a thing. I'm responsible for finding the flaw that you guys messed up with. So I think I should be on this committee. I got named to the committee, and people were criticizing me who were on, quote, my side, because I was arguing that people who disagreed with me should have the ability to say what they want. Why? Because they were chosen by their elected representatives to be on the charter committee to represent their thoughts and their ideas. So, I try and be fair with everything as much as possible. So if I'm sitting there on a jury, I think I would be able to be a type of person that would sit there and say, okay, yes, I may think that Donald Trump is a scumbag. I may think that he's, the worst person who could ever possibly serve as president of the United States ever. Yet, I'm going to only act on his actions in and of themselves and consider them only on conviction. Kind of like the jury did with the case when it came to one of the cases when Michael Jackson was brought up on molestation charges, and I think they were doing it was like a civil court hearing or whatever, and it was a jury trial because of a large award, and the jury foreperson, I think, was interviewed after the case was over, and they found him to not be civilly liable, or if it was a crime, if it was a criminal trial, they found him to be not guilty. And basically what they said was there is no doubt in their minds that Michael Jackson had molested children, but at the end of the day, they knew also that they also believed fully that he didn't molest this particular one. So they were able to put aside their biases about what type of person they thought Michael Jackson was. They believed him to be a child molester, but they still were not going to convict him of child molestation of this individual person because they didn't believe these claims were true. And that's how the justice system is supposed to work. You put your biases aside, you deal with the facts of the case, and if the facts of the case say that they're guilty, they're guilty. If the facts of the case say that they're innocent or not guilty, they're not guilty, and you don't find them guilty. So, hey P-Dubs, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Let's see. It's New York State Court. The jurors are not just from the district. It was a juror. I was a juror in Fed Court, Foley Square in New York City, and lived 100 miles from New York City at the time. So there. Thank you for that, Ichabod. Hey Andrea, good to see you as well. Thank you for hopping in, and thank you for playing the game. By the way, you and my wife and Steve Steve from across the pond, he jumped in and he has played the game. He's joined the team, so we have a bunch of people joining in. Again, support the show, play the game, download the game, it's free to play. You have until Tuesday to get to level 125 and help the show out. See, when I say, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, let me know. As a black man, I'm all too familiar with biased judges and jurors convicting people that they are biased against. Yeah, I'm sure you are. And that happens too many times to people in the black community, and the judicial system is absolutely biased against black folks. Thing is that I still can't grasp the concept as to why you think that Donald Trump is going to be the person who is going to be good at representing you as an individual, but that's not necessarily the topic of the show today. Sorry, but Trump sold one of his jets. Nice. Let's see. Trump sold it, transferred ownership to one of his jets. Heard that today to an Iranian billionaire who is a big Trump donor. Not surprised. Let's see. See if we can get that. Trump sold jets. Trump seemingly sold one of his private jets to a major Republican donor. Donald Trump has reportedly sold one of his jets to a Republican donor. Trump's Cessna Citation X has changed registration to a Dallas-based real estate entrepreneur. The sale of the jet comes as Trump is facing almost $500 million in legal bills. On May 13th, Trump's 1997 Cessna jet was deregistered from the Trump Organization's DT Air Corps. It was then registered to a company called MM Fleet Holdings LLC based in Dallas, Texas. Mesrad Moyadi, an Iranian-American real estate developer based in Dallas, has been identified by the Daily Beast as the owner of the MM Fleet Holdings LLC. Aside from purchasing the private jet, Moyedi had previously used his earnings to regularly donate to the Republican Party. From 2019 and 2020, his donations to the Trump campaign totaled $245,000. In the last 5 years, he has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to other Republican candidates and organizations, including $50,000 to Ted Cruz Victory Fund and $34,000 to the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Moyedi's new jet, which can accommodate up to 9 passengers, was regularly seen along Trump's campaign trail in 2020. As its smaller size allowed it to fly to smaller airports. The plane's tail number DT-725 features a pair of personal details, 725 referencing the New York City address of Trump Tower, which is at 725 Fifth Avenue, and of course DT standing for dictator. I'm sorry, Donald Trump. Now, the presidential candidate will now have to turn the rest of his multi-billion-dollar fleet, such as the famous Boeing 757 known as Trump Force One. Is not known how much the Cessna jet was sold for, but the model is estimated to cost around $10 million, according to private jet broker Evo Jets. It's not enough to make a significant dent in the $454 million fine Trump was ordered to pay in New York. The court found the former president had committed fraud by overestating the value of his assets by $350 million. But here's the thing. Sure, the jet might have be estimated about $10 million, but does that mean that he actually only bought it for $10 million, or did the guy say, hey, I want to support you even more, I'm going to buy this $10 million jet for $30 million as a way to funnel $20 million to you in a legal way? Yeah, dictator, yes, Dave. That's what DT stood for. That was my joke. But earlier today, or earlier in the stream, I think I had said something to the effect where, yes, it was a good day, but it's also a bad day. It's a bad day. I mean, it's good because justice, there's still processes that have to take place. We still have to get to sentencing. There's still the appeals process, yada, yada, yada. But while it's good that he was convicted, because if he committed the crimes, he should be convicted of those crimes, right? Don't do the crime if you don't want to do the time or pay the fine or what have you. But it's also a sad day because we now have for the first time in American history, have a former president who is now a convicted felon. We have a president or somebody running for the office of president who is a former president who is also a convicted felon, who still has the support of a large number of people in this country who have been, many of whom, I'm not going to say all, but many of whom have been brainwashed into believing certain things to be true that are not true. So, MJ Daniel, we should have never come to this point. We shouldn't have. There's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have come to this point. There's he should have never been elected president in the first place, but you had 12% of Bernie Sanders primary voters who flipped to Donald Trump in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Had those people just flipped to Jill Stein and voted and just been angry for, against Hillary Clinton because they didn't like Hillary Clinton, voted Jill Stein, Hillary Clinton would have won. Which is an exception to my normal rule of voting third party only helps evil win. Because in that particular case, there were people that flipped from Bernie to Trump. So in that particular case, voting third party would have helped Hillary win. The exception that proves the rule. So, Tim Farrell, who's to say the plane had a clear title? That's also a good point. Dakota Dave, I'm brainwashed too, vote blue. No matter who. Yeah, he's been a criminal for 50 years. This is a long time ago. Well, yeah. But and it finally caught up with him. Good. But the fact is that we still have a person who is an official convicted felon. He was never a convicted felon until today. Now he is a convicted felon. May 30th. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. We can now say that, and no one can sue us for libel or slander. He is a convicted felon. He is now being hopefully held accountable for his actions, but his supporters are not going to hold him accountable for his actions. His supporters are just going to use this as an excuse again to double down on him. But maybe, just maybe, this loses him a little more support. And also, I think the fact that you now have the ability of President Biden to now say on the campaign trail, President Biden can say in the first debate, because the first debate is happening at the end of June, and that's like a week or two before sentencing. President Biden's going to be able to refer to Donald Trump as a convicted felon live on TV. You're a convicted felon. And there's nothing, I mean, he could whine about it. He could cry about it. He can try and say the same BS bogus arguments about it, but that's going to be worth something in political capital. We'll see what the polls do. Steven says, would New York prosecutors go after Trump if he were not running for president? I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if he would be able to, if they would have done that. I think they probably would have. However, there's no way to know unless we have a Travel to Earth 2 where he wasn't running for president and to see if they still would do it. I think they would have. I think they still would have gone after him. But, because I think the 34 felonies potentially makes it so egregious that you have to go after him. Dean Baker, better to face his rabid base now than later just in case they're thinking about doing bad things. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Can Trump vote or not? Lawfare was saying yes because his conviction was in New York. Let's see, can felons vote in Florida? Trying to see if I can bring that up. Most felons who have certain sentences, including parole and probation, have hit all fines or fees, can vote in Florida elections. November 18th, whatever, restores voting rights to most felons upon completing their sentences. He signed a bill, 706, clarifying Amendment 4, saying the new law required former felons to pay all court-ordered fees and restitution before registering. These fees and costs were terms of their sentence, not including Amendment 4. The law prevented nearly 775,000 from voting, of course, because DeSantis is a scumbag. How other states view felon. Can someone who is a felon in New York vote in Florida? That's the question we should ask, I guess. Well, Florida says if all fleas. Here's what Forbes is saying. A jury's deliberate, blah, blah, blah. A Florida resident with a felony conviction in another state is only ineligible to vote for Florida if the conviction would make the person ineligible to vote in the state where the person was convicted. So if Trump were convicted in New York and unable to vote there, he would not be able to vote in Florida. But in New York, convicted felons only lose their voting rights while incarcerated, meaning even if convicted, Trump would be able to vote as long as he doesn't go to prison or jail. So there you go. So that's the answer. If Donald Trump is not put in prison, he can still vote in Florida. If Donald Trump is only found, if on sentencing they only give a financial penalty and not a imprisonment penalty to Donald Trump, he'll still be able to cast a ballot in Florida. So that's how it works in Florida law as it pertains to felonies and convictions of felonies in other states. So Trump needs a Diet Coke and a what diaper? The heart's getting in the way. A fresh diaper. There we go. Trump needs a Diet Coke and a fresh diaper. Have a Coke and a smile. Over back on Twitch, Penguins 9192. Russia would take Trump. I don't know if Russia would take Trump. Trump is only useful to Putin as long as Trump is politically relevant. I don't know if Trump. I don't know if an irrelevant politically Donald Trump would mean anything to Putin at this point. They'd probably toss him aside like Trump has done to many of his supporters. So, see, Big Hook, France and Italy have had this from before. It's only history in America because Ford pardoned Nixon and we haven't charged every other Republican president who was guilty of crimes covered up. Yeah, I mean, that's true. We didn't test the legal theory about presidential immunity back then because he pardoned him. Of course, why would he need to pardon him if there was presidential immunity, right? You heard they had Whoppers for lunch. Who, the jury or Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump would call them hamburgers, right? Or cheeseburgers. Good to see you, Don. Thank you for joining. Ichabod, I have a MAGA Tears ice cream cone signed by Biden. Nice. Yes, MAGA Tears are delicious tears. Russia has a nice apartment on the 10th floor. Nice balcony. Nice balcony. Hello, Donald. Let me show you a view from balcony. It's very beautiful. You come see. Look, yes, you can see all of Russia from here. Oh, I'm sorry. Donald fell. Oh, it's too bad. He tripped. That's, of course, what Putin would do, not what I would do, because I'm speaking as Vladimir Putin at the moment, not as somebody who's threatening any sort of violence. Unlike the people on X. Let's see. Let's go look at the OAN post from an hour ago saying breaking Donald Trump guilty on all counts. Let's flip over here just to see what the MAGA folks are saying, because we need to see what the MAGA folks are saying to see exactly how threatening they are. Let's zoom in. Here we go. Patriot Smackdown. Find those jurors. Or find these jurors. Find these jurors for what, pray tell? Why would you want to find the jurors? So that seems like a threat right there in and of themselves. Somebody's like, do you believe this is the correct verdict? Somebody says absolute bullcrap. Let's see. Somebody retweeting something about De Niro and his speech. What a sham. This person says, here's what's going to happen in 2024, bookmark. And here it's poo hitting the fan, and then he's retweeting his own tweet about the poo hitting the fan. That picture of Trump is just ridiculous. Like, he looks like the Grinch and Scrooge and everyone all together at once. The fix was in from the start. The judge was the 13th jurist. I bet his daughter made millions off this bet. What? Found guilty and being guilty are two different things. So many grounds for appeal. Sad day for America. Thought I've seen everything. This is the worst I've seen. Look at all these MAGA-tears. What do you expect from New York? More than I expect from anything in the southern states. Guilty by a fraudulent judge and crooked jury is what they're saying. That was the expected result of this circus prosecution. Could have gone no other way. The verdict cards were completed the first day. Nice conspiracy. Go invest in aluminum foil, everybody, because I think that's going to be what these people need. Politics trending. Daddy. What? I don't even know if I want to click on that. Beyond reasonable doubt, y'all. Unbelievable. The criminal justice system is corrupt. Shows how corrupt the judicial system is. Now they're worried about corrupt judicial system. Oh, a Trump pen. Ooh. A sad day and disgrace to our justice system. Our republic is gone. It will be overturned in that jury of traitors. Boo-hoo. It's almost like Donald Trump has all these accounts and is tweeting from all these other accounts. Time to donate. I'm an innocent man. I am an innocent man. Oh, yes, I am an innocent man. Fast cars and big guns. What are we going to do about it? Nothing. Meal Team 6. I say bull hit. Guess they censored themselves and instead made a hashtag hit. We have fake news and fake law. Yes, the law is fake, everybody. Let's pay attention. The law is fake. Grandkids call me Big Daddy. Oh, we got Daddy over here and Granddad's calling me Big Daddy. This is bullshit. No, it's not. Your president is now a convicted felon. Mazel tov. Now they're trying to compare Putin putting Alexei Navalny in jail and Biden doing the same. Trump hasn't even been put in jail yet. There's no prison sentence that has been put down by the judge. Today, May 30th, 2024, a jury of citizens in the state of New York convicted a former president of 34 felony counts. There has been a full-scale political assault on Lady Justice these past few years. She's still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Reaction to the verdicts of 34 counts. This just in from Alito, him upside down. Hilarious. Oh, poor Deborah is heartbroken. She's still voting for Trump, though. This sham does not begin to compare with the horrific atrocities the current regime has inflicted on America. Boo-hoo. All they have done is awaken a sleeping giant, we the people. What you gonna do? Do another failed attempted insurrection? May all Democrats, their children, and their children's children receive the same justice that President Trump has received. Jesus. So lock him up. And now Truth Social is trending as well. Let's see, lock him up. This should be more of the progressive, liberal-minded type folks. I wasn't going to drink tonight, but you better believe I'm breaking out the good stuff. The con man who has caused so much harm and managed to avoid consequences for his misdeeds was just found guilty. Yes. Tara Dublin, Truth, Justice, and the American Way won bigly today. Nice. That's amazing. We will repost Tara. How the F do we live in a world where in the USA someone can easily go to jail for having an abortion but might not go to jail for 34 convictions of election fraud? Lock him up. News Corpse. Guilty on all 34. Lock him up. That's Alvin Bragg. So they're twisting around on it. I can't recall it being this ugly by supporters of any other Republican presidential candidate, but again, this is the first one to have 91 felonies to face. Ooh, what are they saying? What's going on? Ooh, they're taking away signs and everything? Look at that.
I love you, baby.
Stay away. You were told to stay away. You were told
Hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus.
Yes! Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha! We got you. We got you. Ha ha! Ha ha! You were told to stay away. We escorted you out of here. Where the Lily?
Fuck that bitch.
Fuck that bitch.
Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch.
Anti-gay. Get it out of her fucking hands. Get it out of her fucking hands. Get it out of her
Fuck that bitch. Fuck you. Go back to California.
Horrible people. That's it. That's your MAGA folks right there. Oh, here's the Trump remarks. Hold on.
To the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted.
The judge didn't come up. Wait, the judge didn't come up with the charges.
Thank you very much. I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very corrupt.
Deliberation.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges.
That's from yesterday. That's not today's one. I'm sorry, my bad. If Trump goes to prison, it would be his first complete sentence. Lol. Twitter's funny. Meet us, Kevin Anderson. Holy yes, I gotta celebrate. Hello, Fancy. Good to see you. Chad Bostic. This only makes him stronger politically is the sad reality of today. Does it? I don't know if it makes him stronger. I mean, yes, some of his supporters will double down on him, but I think some people are going to not support him because he's convicted. I mean, that has been coming through in the polling, especially from the primary polling, even the Republican primary polling. Manasseh, legally, will he still be able to? Will he be able to still be able to be elected even if in jail or prison? Yes. There's nothing preventing him. We had a candidate who ran for president. He didn't win, but he ran for president from prison. He lost, but still, you can run for office. There's nothing constitutionally that prohibits anybody from being elected president who is a felon. So it is what it is. Now, will people elect a president? We'll see. This can't help his chances. People who think that they will help his chances, I don't see how. Because yes, the people who are going to be all riled up and yay, we're going to support for him doubly now. They were already going to be riled up and support him regardless of what happened. If they found him to be not guilty, they would have, been like, he dodged a bullet. It was still a corrupt trial. They'd still attack. That's the thing. Donald Trump and his supporters, many of his supporters at least, cannot even accept victory without trying to find some defeat in it. Like, remember when Donald Trump lost California, but he tried to claim that he won California and he wanted a recount to be done for the 2016 election? He'd already won, but he was so upset that he lost California to Hillary that he wanted people to recount California just to prove that he won it for whatever reason. Nothing that is done will ever be satisfactory to Donald Trump because it's all rigged. It's all a sham. And if it's all rigged, none of it's rigged. It's the boy who cried wolf. And unfortunately, the story of the boy who cried wolf, when many Republicans, when many MAGA type folks hear the story of the boy who cried wolf, they don't get the lesson that you're supposed to learn. The lesson that you're supposed to learn from the boy who cried wolf is, if you tell a lie enough times, people are not going to believe you, even if you're telling the truth. But the boy who cried wolf, the story that they take, or the moral of the story that they believe happened, or because of the boy who cried wolf, is if somebody lies all the time, you should still believe them just in case they happen to be telling the truth this time. Jeff Curry, it has to lose more votes than it gains. Yeah, I don't know how many it gains. I really don't know how many people who were already voting for Trump, who were already saying that this is a sham trial. I don't know how many more of those people come out of the woodwork because now he's convicted. I think clearly there's going to be people, and we could just do a search on this real quick. Republican primary polling. If Trump is convicted. See if that comes up with that. Um, according to this, I mean, it's polling data, so of course you have to take it with whatever grains of salt. ABC News poll conducted this month found that 60% of Trump supporters would reconsider their support, while 4% would leave him altogether if he is convicted of a felony. So if you had 71 million voters or 72 million voters who voted for you, and 4% are leaving you, that's 3.5 million voters who, roughly, maybe a little less, about 3 to 3.5 million voters who you've just lost immediately from that 4%, and then another 16% or another 10 million voters who would reconsider their support. A Bloomberg Morning Consult poll of 7 swing states in January found 9% of Republican-leaning voters would be somewhat unwilling to vote for Trump if he's convicted of a fine, while 14% of those voters said that they would be very unwilling to vote for him. So, are they saying 14% of the 9%? I don't know. But 14% of the 9% of the Republican-leaning voters could be more than enough to sway an election, especially in swing states. That's why they're swing states. Potential defectors from ABC poll left them wiggle room by saying that they would reconsider support rather than rule it out completely. Although the questions differed, his numbers looked better in the May ABC poll than they did in January, when 14% of the Republicans were more willing to cast Trump off, saying they would be very unwilling to back him in case of a conviction. In USA Today Suffolk poll in March, 14% of Trump supporters said they would leave him if he was convicted, but only 1% would move to Biden. The biggest chunk said 75% they would move to third party. So maybe this helps Kennedy, but it doesn't help Kennedy to the chagrin of Biden. It helps him to the chagrin of Trump. Manasseh, what if he wins from jail? Again, I think when we were on the phone, when we were talking on Monday, I think that raises the possibility of a possible constitutional crisis. Because what do? He can still win. There's nothing preventing him from winning the election from prison or jail or wherever he would be at the time. Let's say the judge comes down on July 11th, which is the day that we're going to see what the verdict is or whatever, what the sentencing is going to be. Let's say, for example, they decide to say, okay, a year in prison for every sentence. And I think, if I remember reading it correctly, if there's a year in prison, if each sentence gets a year in prison, that all of those sentences are served concurrently and not consecutively. So if he gets a year in prison for each of them, it's just like getting a year in prison for one of them. He still serves that 1 year. But a year in prison would mean that he would be sitting in a prison cell on Inauguration Day if he won. So what would happen? Well, I think the Supreme Court would have to ring in. You'd probably have the Supreme Court say that you can't imprison a sitting president, an elected president. So therefore, I would probably bet or wager or what have you that the activist conservative Supreme Court that we have right now would probably, out of thin air, say he can't be in prison while president. So he would have to be allowed to leave prison on January 20th to come in, take the oath of office, be president, and then once he left office, he'd have to go be remanded right back into prison. Which, is just my prediction of how the Supreme Court rule. That's not how I think it should or would happen in reality. I just think that that's how the Supreme Court would word it, or how they would rule it in his favor. So, Dean Baker, Trump would praise the jury for one. Yeah, that's the only thing that Trump probably wouldn't praise. He would praise the jury, but he would praise the jury, but he would still attack the judge and attack the justice system. I mean, I don't know if you can say that he's definitely going to jail. I don't know. Should he? Probably. I think he should go to prison, not because of the fact that I don't like him, but because of the fact that it's 34 freaking felonies. Like, it's not just like a one, like, oh, they found one. They found him guilty on everything. So, there's got to be some prison time. How much? I don't know. I don't think it'll be 4 years. But he could just get probation. He could get probation and maybe it's like you get probation and a suspended sentence for good behavior. But why do we believe that Donald Trump would ever have good behavior? Because Donald Trump's already shown that he can't follow gag orders. He's already shown that he can't listen to the instructions of the judge. He's already shown that he can't be trusted to act right. So the idea that he would be given, like, you know, a suspended sentence requiring that he gets good behavior, I don't know what world we live on that anybody thinks that Donald Trump would behave well. So he can only do a max of 20 years. I think it's, yeah, Chad said 20, but it's 4. He can only do a max of 4 years. And yeah, he can get 34 one-year sentences, but they're all concurrent. He can get 34 4-year sentences, but they're all concurrent. They're not consecutive. So if he gets probation, he's definitely going to win the gameplay all along. That would be in prison on election day. I don't know. That's what we'll see. And that's what the judge has to weigh. The judge has to probably, and he's going to probably weigh it. I don't even know if he should weigh it. I don't even know if that should be something to think about. Does anybody else who is in the political, would anybody else, ignoring the fact that Donald Trump is running for president right now, would anybody else have these questions asked? No. Because no one else would be running for president in this situation. Nobody else is a former president in this situation. So Donald Trump should be treated as if he was anybody else, as when it comes to conviction and when it comes to being sentenced for the crimes that he's been convicted of. So there should be no thoughts in the judge's mind as to, oh, how is this going to play in the media? How is this going to play to the voters? How is this going to be treated? Is this going to be something that is going to negatively affect the election? None of that should matter. As I said yesterday when we were talking about whether or not you should rehear cases and relook at evidence, the same belongs here too. Emotions should have no place here. There should be no emotional or irrelevant thoughts. Just as you shouldn't be worrying about whether or not the family of a murdered person would be upset because you're retesting DNA of somebody or of a case related to somebody who has been convicted of murdering your loved one. Like, you shouldn't be taking those feelings into consideration. Same thing's true here. Feelings about what might happen because Donald Trump just so happens to be a presidential candidate who is now a 34-count convicted felon, that shouldn't come into play on sentencing. Only things that should come into play in sentencing is this. What would anybody else get? What would anybody else get? If anybody else would get a year in prison, then he should get a year in prison. If anybody else would get 4 years in prison, then he should get 4 years in prison. If anybody else would get a suspended sentence and probation and a fine, then he should get a suspended sentence, probation, and a fine. Because this should not be about how MAGA voters feel, about what the election is, about the results. This should only be about what is the appropriate punishment for committing these crimes. MJ Daniel, I do not care if he gets anything serious for this, but the next 2 trials are the big ones. I mean, maybe, but are we even going to get to those? And even if we get to those or don't get to those, it shouldn't matter in the terms of this trial. Now, yes, I've made the arguments before, and I've made the argument again on the last Monday show, I think it was, that Donald Trump clearly signed a bill into law that made him that made mishandling of classified documents a felony, punishable of up to 5 years in prison, and Donald Trump broke his own law that he wrote or that he signed. That's dumb. So, Trump is not a martyr, he's still a farter. He could be a farter martyr. When I say we still have to monitor the polls in the coming weeks, we'll see if the sentencing and his poll numbers go up, he will get a lighter sentence. If his poll numbers go down, he will get a harsher sentence. See, that's the thing, though. I don't think that the judge is going to be looking at poll numbers. Because if his poll numbers go, wait. You're saying if his poll numbers go up, he'll get a lighter sentence? And if his poll numbers go down, he'll get a harsher sentence? Even if you wanted to buy that conspiracy theory that his sentence is going to be based off of polls, which I don't buy, wouldn't it be the opposite? Would the opposite be true? Would it if his poll numbers, if somebody was really going to try and manipulate the system and really try and sentence him based off of how polling goes, wouldn't they give him a harsher sentence if his poll numbers go up to punish him? I don't know. I don't necessarily buy that. See, Chad asks, do you think that he got a fair venue for the trial, or that a more diverse jury poll would have been more fair? I mean, I think as it was said before by Ichabod said that the jury poll was diverse. Trump not documents case. Where's pulled from? Meet the 12 members of Trump's hush money trial. A lawyer, a banker, a speech therapist, blah, blah, blah. All 12 jurors plus an alternate were selected this week. 200 jurors. Juror number 1, man who lives in West Harlem. Man who works in investment banking. Young man from Chelsea. Another woman who is a Harlem resident. Another person from Chelsea. Another person from the Upper East Side. It's not saying where everybody is. I don't know. It's interesting. You know, I think that the pool is from a more diverse group of people than a lot of the people who were trying to say that this isn't a fair trial are giving him credit to be. So, Kim says, jury of his peers, the end. Yes. Technically, but I mean, Donald Trump would probably consider nobody his peer. There's nobody who's my peer, therefore I can't have a jury of my peers. So it's a trial. It's a sham trial. Oh, Manasseh, if his polls are going up, it means that he's being perceived as a victim of political persecution, and they'll try and take it easy on him to stop that perception. I guess I can see your point if you wanted to subscribe to that political theory, but I mean, it must be tough going through life believing all those conspiracy theories. I mean, how? It just, you can't go through life thinking that. There's spam in the Twitch. Physical therapist, what I heard, they have their S together. The venue to me isn't an issue. It's where there was brought and jury selection both agreed them on. That's the other point, is that if Donald Trump's attorneys felt that these jurors were going to be a problem, they would have objected to them. One of the people follows Donald Trump on Truth Social. I don't even follow Truth Social. And I'm Liberal Dan, and I'm just like, ugh, I don't even want to wade into that cesspool. Twitter's bad enough. his poll numbers did go up after the Mar-a-Lago raid. But did they go up because of the Mar-a-Lago raid, or did they go up because of something else? Is it the fact that his poll numbers went up because he was raided, or did his poll numbers go up because he was in the news and so you're seeing him more often? It's whole correlation versus causation, right? Trying to. Oh, that's the thing I want to hit. It's not letting me hit it. No. I can't deal with it right now. Alvin Bragg is on. Let's see. All I'm saying, Dave, is that for a former Republican president trying a case in a 90% Democrat voting district, but just because it's in the district, it doesn't mean that it's. Or do we watch this on Fox News?
White-collar prosecution is core to what we do at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. In the 1930s, District Attorney Thomas Dewey ushered in the era of the modern, independent, professional prosecutor. For now nearly 90 years, dedicated professionals in this office have built upon that fine tradition. A major part of our practice during that nearly 90 years has been public integrity work, including cases involving jurists, local and state electeds, public servants, and others. I want to thank this phenomenal prosecution team, embodying the finest traditions of this office: professionalism, integrity, dedication, and service. They are model public servants, and I am proud and humbled to serve side by side with them. The 12 everyday jurors vowed to make a decision based on the evidence and the law, and the evidence and the law alone. Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law, and doing so without fear or favor. I want to conclude by expressing deep gratitude to the NYPD and the officers of the Office of Court Administration for securing the courthouse, all of our safety, making sure that the courthouse and all of the other matters that are important in their own right continued seamlessly. They will continue to be and have always been incredible partners. Thank you.
And do you plan to request a prison sentence for this conviction? And do you think that Donald Trump's multiple violations of the gag order that was in place should factor into that request at all?
The judge scheduled a sentencing for July 11th. We will speak in court in that time. He also set a motion schedule. We will speak in our court filings as we've done throughout this proceeding.
Donald Trump has repeatedly targeted you personally and members of your prosecution team. Do you have a response to the former president after this trial is concluded?
I do not.
In February, you decided not to bring cases against Donald Trump?
All right. right. So there's Alvin Bragg talking about everything that's going on. And the, let's see. So would you say, though, that, you know, when it came to talking to the media, that he was it was a humble brag? Sorry. I don't have my soundboard, but I was able to find the sound anyway, just so I could play it. Now, don't say butthurt. Butthurt's not one of my favorite words. But here's the thing here's the argument I would make to Chad and to Manasseh or whatever. And where else would they have had this trial? Where else could you have possibly have had this trial? Could you have had it in Alabama? It's a state of New York trial. You have to have trials in the venue that they're in, where the crime was alleged to have committed. Actually, you can say now where the crimes were committed. You can't have it in Kentucky. You can't hold the trial in South Dakota. The trial has to be held in New York City. New York City! Get a rope. Anyway. And maybe if Donald Trump didn't want to be put on trial for crimes, he shouldn't have committed the crimes. And maybe, you know, that's if you want to commit crimes while conducting business, and you don't want a jury of people who are going to disagree with you politically, don't have your business be in the center of New York City. If you're Donald Trump. I mean, he chose to commit crimes in New York. To paraphrase the line from My Cousin Vinny, where Daniel LaRusso, what's his face, that character, he was like, you know, you could ask questions, right, Vin? And Vinny was like, you're two New York guys in freaking Alabama. This was clearly going to go to trial. You can't have a trial outside of where the crime takes place, except for maybe extreme extenuating circumstance. Right, Stephen Sayers. Hence, he was prosecuted in the state of New York. And probably that's why he was prosecuted in the city of New York City. Because that's where his crimes were committed. There's an easy way for Donald Trump to have avoided all of this. Don't commit crimes. Now, Donald Trump, of course, has a lifetime, as it was said in the chat. He has a history, a history of you know, getting away with all sorts of unethical, immoral, and illegal behaviors. He probably believed that he could get away with this illegal behavior as well because Donald Trump believed he's above the law. He clearly believes he's above the law because he espouses legal theories and has his legal team espousing legal theories that state just that he should be fully immune from charges, actions done as president because he's president, and presidents should be fully immune. Donald Trump is always going to believe that he's above the law, so he's never going to believe that any criminal prosecution of him would be valid in any way, shape, or form. And had he committed the crimes in Alabama, would he have been prosecuted for those crimes? Well, if you're going to argue that he wouldn't have been prosecuted if he would have done business in Alabama, it's a moot point because he didn't do business. He didn't conduct his business in Alabama. But even then, all that says is that the Alabama justice system is corrupt, because they would be willing to allow a favored political person to get away with a crime simply because he's a favored political person. So that's not something that's saying something bad against the New York system. It says something bad about the Alabama system. And you still have Trump trying to claim that this whole thing is like brought on by Biden. Biden has nothing to do with the state of New York. But even if Biden wanted to use the system in a corrupt way, and we've already tackled how that's a hypocritical stance of MAGA folks to make, especially those who believe that presidents have full immunity, Biden seems to take a laissez-faire approach to the justice being done in this country. He's hands off. He's so hands off that he's allowing the justice system to go after his own child for the crimes that Hunter Biden was alleged to have committed. So how are you going to tell me that Joe Biden is this corrupt political figure who's trying to use the judicial system to go after his enemies, when he's not even using the judicial system and taking advantage of his power over the judicial system to protect his own son? He's forcing his son to go through a criminal process that was started when Donald Trump was president. He kept that prosecuting attorney employed by the federal government, despite that not being something that's typically done, because he didn't want any appearance of impropriety when it came to his use or abuse of the judicial system. Hillary violated the Espionage Act but got off on intent. Biden had classified information but got off because... No. Again, Biden got off... Biden... One of the reasons that in the charging document that was discussed was that they felt that Biden would be sympathetic to the jury. Not just because he's an old man with a bad memory, but because of being sympathetic to the jury. But also, Biden didn't have the intent. And Hillary didn't have the intent. Trump showed clear intent. This has nothing to do with the documents case. This has nothing to do with the documents case. But again, as we discussed on Monday, Trump showed intent to violate the Espionage Act, the newly empowered Espionage Act. How so? Because he's on a recording showing people classified documents that he says he didn't declassify, that he could have declassified, but he didn't. And he's showing people who have no business seeing those documents what those documents have to say, despite them being classified. That's intent. And he also had intent to lie to the... They've proven intent. They're proving intent to show that he lied to the grand jury when it came to whether or not he returned all the documents when asked. So, wait, I'm missing something in chat. Kim says something about spanking. We haven't gotten yet to Liberal Dan After Dark yet. We need to grow the podcast much bigger for me to create the separate channel, Liberal Dan After Dark, so that we can discuss the more adult themes, at which point we can talk about you getting spanked all you want. Don D. Bear, can't wait to hear from my Trump supporters. Irregardless is a bad word. You shouldn't use irregardless. Technically, it is a word, but it's you could just say regardless and it be the same thing. So, just like, you could say preventative, but you can just simply say preventive, and it's the same thing. Just say preventive instead of preventative. I know a guy that talks like that. One time he argued with me about 60 plus 40 equals 70. Well, I do say that we have a flat Earth, not because of its, flat versus round, but because it's mostly water and it's not carbonated water, so that means it's flat. Right? Steven Sayers, what's mine is mine. That's Judge Cannon espionage case. Yes, that's the espionage case, and I don't think we're going to see that case before the end of the presidential campaign. But again, people who are trying to conflate what Biden did and what Pence did with what Trump did, and what Hillary did, what Biden did, and what Pence did with what Trump did when it came to documents, are missing those big things. That A, Trump specifically failed to return the physical paper documents and held on to them after it was requested that he return all of them. And B, he then we know that he showed people classified documents because he admitted doing so in recording. And he said he wanted the whole meeting off the record. What else can you say? Trump stole the docs on purpose. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That too. There's also the Trump mishandling of the documents when it came to when president, when he showed Russia intel base that was given to us by Israel, and then that intel was used to attack Israel on 10/7. But that's not necessarily pertaining to the documents case, but it just shows how Donald Trump is willing to show people who shouldn't be seeing our classified documents. Now, granted, as president, I would argue that he has more leeway he would have more leeway to show documents to people. Right? But still, him doing so led to Hamas being able to attack Israel more effectively on 10/7. So when Donald Trump says there wouldn't have been hostages after if he was president, that's BS, because he was one of the reasons why Hamas was able to attack so effectively. So Dean Baker, that he stole docs is very treasonous in my opinion. It's not just that he stole them, it's that him taking the documents, not necessarily horrible, because as we've seen in the past with many circumstances where people have documents they're not supposed to have, as long as you simply return them, it's not a big deal. But that he held on to them after being asked to be after they were asked to be returned to him, and then after they afterwards lied to the grand jury about it, and then it would show that he showed them to people after being president. How can you not be guilty of that crime? But yet Judge Eileen Cannon, who needs to be fired like a cannon would be, she's gonna be she is his basically attorney on the bench. She's running all sorts of defense for him to make sure that he has fewer cases to worry about. It's just that we don't know what he had done with them. The thing is, we don't know what he did with all of them. We do know what he did with several of them because it's on audio. There's audio of it. And you can say rules for thee and not for 8. I don't know what that means, but it's the same rules apply to everybody. Had Joe Biden, when he was in the private sector, showed documents to individuals who were not supposed to see them, then I would say that Joe Biden should be punished for that. Just like Donald Trump should be punished for showing documents that he had no right showing to anybody else who lacked the clearance to see those documents. Because that would be a clear mishandling of it. But one of the things to take into consideration is that when Biden left with the records, when Hillary had the emails, it was a misdemeanor. Trump made it a felony. So yes, the rules are different for Trump than they were for Hillary and Biden. Why? Because Donald Trump signed the bill into law making the punishment more harsh. So yes, it's two different sets of rules based on when the alleged crimes were said to have been committed and what the punishment for said crimes were at the time. I would also argue, though, that there's a difference between if you delete an email, like if somebody sent Hillary and if Hillary Clinton was sent emails from a server and she put it on her own private server, right? And then she discarded the contents of the server, that's completely different than hard paper. Because somebody clearly sent the information, so there's going to be in somebody else's sent mailbox. So it's not like she destroyed hard copies of intel or hard copies of classified data. She didn't destroy them. She might have destroyed a phone, maybe, or a server, maybe. I don't know. But she was, but again, if Hillary Clinton, why did the Donald Trump administration for 4 years not prosecute Hillary Clinton after campaigning on lock her up? Because for Donald Trump, if you lock her up and you go after her, if you go after her in a trial and you lose, well, you look like a fool. If you go after her in a trial and you win, well, then you no longer get to use it as an attack point against your political rivals. That was a choice that Donald Trump and his Justice Department made, to not go after Hillary Clinton for whatever alleged crimes they're saying she did. Because if she did them, why didn't they go after her for those? Why didn't they go after those crimes? Steven Sayers, I'm on pins and needles waiting for Roseanne's statement. Hilarious. I wonder what she'll say. Hal's having fun with. I'm just popping. I turned off my volume and just popping in just to see how Hal being live. We're probably going to end in a sentence. Let's just see if we can find Donald Trump statements after conviction. Let's just play those real quick, and then we'll probably end the show and have y'all, and we'll all hop over to Hal. Let's see. Trying to see if we can find the particular video that I'm looking for. I would have had it beforehand, but you know, we went live as soon as I came upstairs. Let's just say last hour. Here you go. Trump delivers remarks following historic felony conviction. Oh, it helps if I actually have the mute on.
Trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt.
Here we go. Here's what Donald Trump said afterwards. Come on. Why is this starting not muted? Let's try it one more time. Why is this not going live? Pain in my neck. No, it was not done by the Biden administration. It was done by Bragg and the New York, because there's nothing to do. Federal prosecutions has nothing to do with this, but of course he's going to continue that lie. And I'm just, I'm frankly shocked that he hasn't gone on and said anything more about rigged and the people who would do the rigging. I'm surprised he hasn't called them riggers, because I'm sure his base would purely get along great with that, because I'm sure they would love to be able to use that play on words. Sure you will. You're going to fight to the end, and then you're going to win. Nope, I don't believe that they will. Let's just follow up real quickly. So good luck with that BS whenever they're highly educated forum. Can't beat Ari Melber. Chad, I'm sure. Matter of fact, I've harvested my 2 ladies. I'm growing in the tent on a Saturday. I'm very, very excited. Puff, puff, pass, Chad. My old baseball coach called me Jeffro Bodine. Nice. Pitching a tent come Saturday. You were on the right track, Boswick. LOL. Steven, I passed the 10th grade twice. That makes me smart. We do need olive branches. We do need to get along well. I mean, which is why I appreciate that, Manasseh, that you're going to continue on and come and keep coming back to the show. I appreciate that you're coming back, because I do want to have differences of opinion. I do want to have different, and sometimes it's to the chagrin of some of the folks who are my viewers, because some people just don't like what I'm willing to tolerate, and then I think my line is well past other people's line. But that's because I'm running a show, and I understand, and I want to be able to comment and respond to people who not just who I agree with, but who I disagree with. And B, I think that it's important that we can potentially find common grounds on some issues in order, if we're ever going to heal as a country, once we get by this Donald Trump fiasco. Because eventually we are gonna get by the Donald Trump fiasco. Hopefully, either we get by it and we move on from him, or we're screwed, in my opinion. But freaking fly over here. But I also think it's, there's also the House Marks argument of having more people talk in the chat helps the views, or helps the algorithms, which is good. But even then, I still want to be able to have a wide variety of content in the comments that I can comment on. And I hopefully at some point it'll be even bigger and better. And at some point I might have to, I might lose some comments and might have to have better software to deal with comments that come in, or maybe have somebody who takes the comments and posts them in the chat and say, hey, here's this chat. Let's comment on that. But anyway, until then, all I'm going to say is that I do appreciate everybody for joining me at this spur of the moment one. I don't know if there's much else we could say about the Trump trial as of right now. Again, he's guilty on all 34 counts. Says the jury. So that's according to our legal system. Trump is now a convicted felon, and he fell on bad days. I'm going to go ahead and head this off, and maybe head on over to Hal's chat and see what happens over there. So until then, again, we'll be back Monday with the regularly scheduled show. And also, if you haven't done so yet, download that game that's pinned on both the Twitch and the YouTube chats. It's free to play. Get to level 125 before like Tuesday-ish, 6 p.m.-ish. Central Time, and it'll help me. And if once you get to level 20 or 21, join Nerdy Dan, DOTCOM, nerdydan.com, the team, so that I can submit that and get it extra help. But if 8 people get to level 25, we're going to max out the amount of money that I can make with this sponsorship, and then we'll go on and do the next one. So until then, thank y'all very much for showing up in the middle of the afternoon. I'll probably see many of y'all over at Hal's. Have a good one. Peace.